Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our finale review for The Bachelor, plus the after the final rose. This was legitimately uncomfortable at times. This was a very difficult end to a difficult season. We do have a little bit of a silver lining in that the Bachelorette announcement has me legitimately, really excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about The Bachelorette. It is already time to move forward from this season and this mess. Also, going forward, can these finales not be 3 hours? We are fans of the Bachelor franchise, obviously, and 3 hours is a really long time. Nobody needs to stay here for 3 hours. Shorten it. You can do it.
See, yeah,
Tighten it up, man.
2 hours is fine. I think 2 hours is the ideal length for a finale. That's all well and good. I mean, we have so much to get into. We will talk about Katie and Michelle being the new Bachelorettes. We'll go through what we saw in the finale after the final rose, Emmanuel Acho, how he ended up doing. But before we go any further, if you guys do enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe because, we, of course, are going to be here talking all about these Bachelorette seasons and a whole lot more in the future. We don't want you guys to miss that.
All right, so let's start with the good news,
yes,
which is 2 Bachelorette seasons. 2. Now, we have all heard the Katie rumors. We love Katie. We had been hoping for Katie. Katie is going to be one of them. But the other person that we had all been really hoping for, a lot of us are hoping for, was Michelle. Yeah. And she's going to be the second Bachelorette. It is Christmas early. Yeah. We are going to have a lot of really good content coming up.
Yeah. It's like 2 leads who I both legitimately really like. That's very rare for this franchise, for starters. And
yep,
I was worried, this idea of 2 leads, it's like, oh no, are we gonna do like what it was with Britt and Caitlyn where the guys had to choose, or is it gonna be like Claire and Tayshia?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need any more of those split seasons. That should just all been Tayshia. She's raised the bar, and now we have 2 really great Bachelorettes going into 2 seasons. Yeah.
How I'm guessing this is gonna work is that we have Katie first. They made that very clear. So I'm guessing we'll have Katie probably in the May-ish period of time. They haven't started filming yet.
Yep.
Then maybe Michelle will be a little bit later this year. We don't know what is happening with Bachelor in Paradise at the moment.
No.
Maybe that's happening in the summer. If not, maybe Michelle's season is. Maybe Michelle's season is getting the Claire/Tayshia time slot in the fall.
Yep, which I am fine with.
It is Bachelor year-round because, they have to replace the great late Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart somewhere in the schedule.
That was such a fun show. And then what is going on with the senior love show that I am chomping at the bit for? I want that show so bad.
That's going to happen eventually. I think
Bachelor, the golden years. I really want this show so much.
See, I don't even know the name for it.
That's what I'm calling it for now.
That feels like a good name, because any name I tried to come up with on the fly would probably just end up with me jamming my foot into my mouth. But that is the good news. I love both of these people. I think Michelle and Katie are gonna have great seasons.
Yeah, me too.
I hurt so much for Michelle in this finale. Legit. The jersey thing was the cutest thing I'd ever seen in my... I was like, look at the jerseys, Mr. and Mrs. I was like...
I saw his face as she was pulling it out, and I was like, oh no, this is happening. She's going to have her heart broken. It's going to break all our hearts, so I'm extra excited that she's going to be coming back.
Yeah, this was... such a good, it's a good ending to what was a very depressing story for me with Michelle, because she obviously was so in love with him. She had planned everything out. She thought the jerseys was a fun thing that they would love together.
She was really confident, and I love that about her. Yeah. I love a confidence about your love, and that way we know going into the Bachelorette that she is going to bring that same confidence in with her, that she is committed to this. Because Matt felt like he was mostly committed to this process until he saw his mom. And I'm not saying she came in and ruined him, But I mean, obviously what happened, you know, we saw him with his dad last week and he was getting really uncomfortable and in his feelings about everything. And then this week he's with his mom and he can see this heartbreak that she carries around. It's obviously going to affect him. And it did.
It was so clear in watching this that, you know, Matt obviously has some really deep-rooted issues that he must have thought throughout this process that he was getting past, that he was in a good spot, and that he was ready. But then seeing his mom was sort of just like pulling him back to earth, because I'm sure when he got the call to be the Bachelor and he's doing all the press leading up to the season, I'm sure he probably convinced himself, okay, I can do this. I could be wrong. I don't know Matt James at all, but I don't understand why he would sign up for this show if he thought that he was incapable of proposing at the end of it. I gotta think he was interested in it.
No, I 100% believe, I don't know him either, but I have faith that he went into this thinking that he was ready for it. And then he had that conversation with his dad and it started to unravel things.
Yeah.
And then he, back to back, then saw his mom and saw the hurt that she carries around. And that just unraveled the rest of him. And it's not on his parents. It's something that he is carrying with him that I think he didn't realize how much he's carrying it with him. Like, he acknowledged that he, you know, has some relationship issues because of that stuff. But once these doors are starting to be open and having these hard conversations with his dad and seeing the hurt with his mom, I think it was just a big realization for him that he is not there yet. So of everything that happened, and I know there are people out there that feel really weird when bachelors don't propose at the end or it doesn't go that way. I'm all right with that. I am okay with the idea that someone needs a little more time and that they're, you know, not going to put that extra pressure of having to propose and sort of say, okay, you know what? I'm not here yet, but I feel like I'm going to be. So let's keep on trucking. That's fine.
I don't have any problem with what he did either, because it's realistic that, okay, you finding someone, getting engaged in the quick period of time that you do, because it's not like he's spending every second of the day with these people either. Like, he's probably, I don't know, spent the overall totality of like 4 days with Rachael through the entirety of this experience.
Yeah.
It is a situation where, true to life, that would be something that happens where you go, okay, I need a little bit more time. Like, I don't really have any issue with Matt deciding what he did at the end. The one thing I have a big issue with Matt about, and we found this out in the after the final rose, is him not wanting to give Michelle like 2 minutes of closure. That was it just felt very mean to me, and I didn't understand why he would say no to that.
Yeah, and I still didn't really understand why he said no to that. What I was kind of expecting him to say was just that this whole process was getting overwhelming to him. He had the tough conversation with his dad. Then everything sort of piled on with seeing his mom hurt. And he was in his own feelings to the point that he didn't even go out on his final date with Rachael, that he was so down a hole that he wasn't able to actually then take on those extra couple minutes with Michelle, that he just couldn't do it. That's where I thought he was going with it, because that all makes sense when he sort of said, you know what, it was my mistake, I should have done that, I didn't know how much you were hurting, that it was more about he didn't understand where she was coming from, but if he had, he would have given her those 2 minutes, when he didn't even see Rachael at all for that whole date that she was supposed to be on. It was strange.
The other thing that was strange to me, and I don't know if I should read into this or not, but the words Matt said specifically to Michelle is, I should have fought harder for those 2 minutes. And that made me think that like production or something else was holding him back, or being like, no, you can't do it unless it's on camera or something like that. And he didn't really put up a fight. It was just a really weird choice of words. I should have fought harder.
Yeah, and I mean, he did talk a little bit tonight about just that he is very careful with his words, and that he has been sort of all season as well. So, I mean, maybe he just felt that that was the right thing to say. I thought he was going to dig a bit deeper into why he didn't, because if I had to have a guess, that is the reason why he didn't end up seeing her for that extra time. If he canceled his date with Rachael, which he did, and he was just like, man, I can't, then he can't give 2 minutes over here either. Like, he was just out.
Yeah, it felt to me like he wanted to be at a distance from certain things. And even in the after the final rose, I mean, he had some really good moments, but he had a couple other moments where it felt like he didn't really answer the question that was asked. Like, I don't think he fully answered everything when it comes to Michelle. There was a couple other moments. He did feel very guarded, and understandably so, all things considered. He really talked a lot about what it's like being in his position and having all these eyes on you, where no matter what you say and do, everyone is going to have an opinion about him. Like, I do not envy the position that he was in this after the final rose in the slightest.
No, I don't either.
Like, you know, we have a lot to say with Matt and with Rachael, but let's spend a moment here on Emmanuel Acho, who's just brought in, never done anything with Bachelor Nation before.
Do you want to have an awkward hug?
That was okay.
So strange. Listen, okay, there was a couple of things here where at first I was kind of like, okay, he seems really nervous, but, you know, I like him so far. Then he started getting into the one-on-one conversations, and I was like, okay, I really like him. Things are going really good for him. I really like him. He's asking a lot of really good questions, tough questions, smart questions, and then he told Matt and Rachael, hey, do you guys want to have one last embrace? I was like, what is happening here? Why?
Yeah.
Why would they want to hug? They've just had like one of the worst conversations, and now, hey, you guys are probably never going to see each other again. He said that a couple times too.
Yeah.
You may never see him again. Is there anything you need to say? Why not have an embrace?
Like, there was a lot. I think there was a lot going on for Emmanuel in this too, because I feel like when he was at his best, and I would even say at times he was better than Chris, is when he was doing those one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, when he was like off the cuff and just sort of speaking from, you know, Bachelor, tropes intended here, his heart. Like, I really felt like he was genuine and empathetic and interesting, and I think, Chris has done this for so long, he can kind of just get watered down and just hits the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, he does. Chris feels a bit robotic at this point, where Emmanuel didn't. He felt very nervous at first, and then when he kind of got his groove going on, it was flowing really nicely. There was like this really nice back and forth. My favorite part was just him and Matt talking on the couch with the conversation just flowing really freely.
Yeah.
It was really good. It just felt like one of the more genuine conversations that we've had all season.
And that's why, the bummer here for Emmanuel is having to come in with no other experience. He does at least no other experience on this franchise. I know he's done plenty of other things, but he didn't really have a chance to craft his own style or put his own stamp on anything. And I think that's why it felt kind of awkward and a little bit stunted at first, just because it was a lot of, okay, I got to do this. But then it was like, I'm sitting down. This is my element. I'm going to really kill this. And he did. I was impressed that the show itself, they addressed pretty much everything that was out there in the headlines. They didn't really just skimp over things, including Chris.
A little bit with Chris. They didn't really talk about, this is where I found it a little bit strange. So we had Emmanuel coming on, but we had Chris's voice.
That was weird, yeah.
Voicing over that he was going to be there and that this was coming up and whatever. And I was kind of like, okay, so this episode hadn't been filmed yet. This was filmed after. Chris is gone. Why is Chris's voice coming in to do some of this stuff? Then they didn't really address why Chris wasn't there. They did say, that he had this interview that went really sideways, but they didn't actually say, and that's why he's not here tonight, and we don't know what is going on. Instead, they had that voiceover, and it made me feel like maybe Bachelor is still kind of doing fans and people who are watching the show a little bit dirty, where they're trying to still keep him here. And he hasn't been fired or anything like that, so he might be coming back for the next Bachelor. We know that we're going to have other hosts coming in for Bachelorette.
Yeah.
But maybe they still wanted to just have that reminder that Chris is still technically involved. He hasn't completely been fired or anything like that yet. And when I heard his voice, I was kind of like, I feel like this is kind of sneaky. Like you're still trying to remind the more casual fans that might not know everything that he did, that he is not gone.
That part of it, I was really surprised when you had, like, the moment I heard Chris actually say Emmanuel's name, like, that signaled, okay, you said he was stepping away from the franchise. He didn't step away if he's doing the narration.
That's
like,
right.
I was surprised that they really even explicitly brought up the Rachael Lindsay interview with things. I didn't know, because if they're going to bring Chris back, I didn't know if they were just going to do a thing where they tried to gloss over every part of it, but like you said, the whole recording the voiceover thing was weird because we do have Caitlin Bristow and Tayshia. They're co-hosting the next Bachelorette. I don't know.
That's going to be so good.
Like, I don't know what that means for Emmanuel in Bachelor Nation moving forward. I know he's got other jobs. I don't think he can just, like, stop doing any of that. But I'm happy for Caitlin and for Tayshia. They know how to be empathetic and in the moment and all of that stuff.
And I think it's nice to have women there to help the female lead. Sometimes it's nice to just talk to another woman when you're going through it with guys you're dating. So, you know, it's I'm excited about it, and I love Tayshia, and Caitlin's great too.
The interview itself with Matt and Rachael, like, we don't need to regurgitate everything that we've said about Rachael in the past. We've done videos talking all about it, and, you know, obviously what she did was detestable, and we've talked about all the problems with it. But, you know, this, I can't say that this interview surprised me. It went basically exactly as I thought it would. You know, I'm not surprised they're not together. I can't imagine Matt being put in that position. I don't think that they will ever be together again. It seems like she still hopes that, but I just highly, highly doubt it.
No, I mean, there were a couple of things that were really telling to me that I think Matt said about Rachael, and something that Emmanuel sort of asked her as well, saying, you know, once you were with Matt and sort of things were starting to swirl, you know, was it keeping you up at night that these pictures were out there that you were like, oh no, like this is going to come up. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle it? And she was just like, no, I didn't worry about it at all. I didn't think about it at all. It was just pictures with my friends. So there's been this argument going around that was like, oh, it's 2018. It was 3 whole years ago, that it was like a lifetime ago. But she said this in 2021, that she just didn't think that there was still anything wrong with these pictures or at this party or anything that she had done. She was still clueless to all of it, or at least saying that she was. And so when Matt was kind of like, you know, having these conversations with you and you just still couldn't get it, that's why I had to walk away. I was kind of like, wow, there is a lot of work there for her. And I don't think anybody's beyond learning or growing. I think people can learn and grow at any age. It's just if you actually have the catalyst to help you get there. But I was glad that at the very least she didn't make up excuses and be like, oh, it's from how I grew up, or this or that or whatever, or my parents or anything like that, because really the person to blame is herself. She makes her decisions.
Yeah, she's in charge of her own choices. She was in charge of who she hung out with. She was in charge of whatever influences were in her life. Like, she had control. And yeah, she owned some of her past decisions. She apologized for it and everything else. But Matt had a very good point in that he doesn't have to be, you know, her emotional support system and be there for her tears when so much of what she's done has hurt him to his very core, because he loved her. And, you know, it doesn't matter whatever her intent was. It's a betrayal to his very foundation as a person.
Yeah, to him.
Yeah.
So he's not the person that has to be or should be responsible for holding her up. Or even Emmanuel brought up to, do you feel that you could have been the person to help her or teach her or bring her into this other thing? And it's not like, if Matt wants to do that, then okay, but he's hurt by this already. So then he has to just put aside how he feels to help her. Like, it's just not... He's not the right person to bring her into this next step. He's completely right. This is work she has to do, and he shouldn't have to be the person to be there to help her through it.
And I know he's going to get a lot of, like, garbage criticism of, like, oh, if you really loved her, you should have stood by her, or this, that, or whatever.
You can love somebody and not be okay with what they're doing, or not stand by certain things, or back away to allow somebody to grow. Sometimes that is the way you grow. It's not always by hand-holding somebody.
And you can forgive somebody, but also still decide, you know what, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. Right. Like, there's so many this is a lot more nuanced than I think a lot of critics of whatever Matt does or says are going to point out online. The only other part of this I thought was just a little bit strange is, Emmanuel did ask Matt the question, do you think you could ever be with her again? And he really didn't answer it. He basically said the same thing that he said previously. I still don't think he's ever going to be with her again, and I think this is done. I don't think there's any bringing anything back after what's happened.
No, and I think he didn't answer it for exactly the reason you just said, that there are a lot of critics out there that are going to be saying and have been saying, well, if you really loved her, you would stand by her through everything and anything, even though, I mean, we have to remember that these two had only really known each other for like as long as this filmed for. Was it 6 weeks, 8 weeks? Like, it's not very long. So I think that Matt was just in a position that he can't really say yes or no to anything like that.
And I think that kind of sums up this season. Like, I would be shocked if Matt is ever in Bachelor Nation again. I think this show put him through a lot of really, really terrible stuff. I agree. He had to be there through all of this controversy. It was probably hard for him to speak out at certain times. I don't know what his contract or any of that sort of stuff looks like. Like, this had to be incredibly uncomfortable for him on so many levels, and that's
too bad because Matt seems like a really nice guy. I've enjoyed watching him, and people like Katie and Michelle and Bree. I mean, there was Abigail. There was a lot of people that I did enjoy in this season, but he got handed such a raw deal with this season, with everything that happened. There were some things that were obviously out of his control. Yeah. Like some of the casting that happened this season where they just casted a basket full of villains this season. Yes. And then on top of it, everything that happened with Rachael, he had no way to know any of this had happened. I just don't know if after this experience, we would see him with anything again. And I wouldn't blame him one bit.
No, and that's why, I feel terrible for him with all the circumstances that were put around him, because I think he has the soul of a really great bachelor in him, and it's just...
I was so excited when this season was like starting to get started. Yeah. We knew he was going to be the Bachelor. I mean, I was really excited for him, and right away he got saddled with some bad casting.
Yeah. Bad casting, bad decisions, bad production decisions at times, him having to deal with all of this with Rachael.
Not enough vetting of the people that were coming on the show. Like, they should have been able to catch some of this. It was only 3 years ago. This isn't that long ago. So I'm hoping that we would see him again, but in my heart of hearts, I feel like we won't. No, he'll do some interviews and that he's contractually obligated to do, and then we will see him around the rumor mill or maybe on Instagram with Heather, because that's who I think he's going to end up with.
That would be the weirdest, that the person they deliberately ignored at the Women Tell All ends up being with him.
Yeah, but they hang out in the same circles. They have the same friends, so, who knows?
We'll see what happens, but... let's hear from you guys. Obviously, there's a lot going on in this finale, the After the Final Rose. What did you think of it all? Do you think we will ever see Matt James on the Bachelor franchise again? Let us know. And if you do like this video, you can subscribe, give us a like, support us further.
Or give us an awkward hug.
Which basically means you just continue to sit there, because that's exactly what happened when Emmanuel brought that up. But thank you guys for watching and hanging out with us all season. I know it hasn't always been easy.
But thank you for sticking with us. We appreciate it.
And we will see you guys here next time.